Finally, where was that?
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I can't believe Syracuse finally did it. That's right. They finally beat an inferior opponent by a wide margin. Syracuse basketball dominates UAlbany 102-85 tonight. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And on today's show, it's a post-game reaction. We are talking about how Syracuse basketball actually did it. They dominated UAlbany 102-85. We're going to talk about the two key players in this game. Just a couple of shout-outs. Going to the basket has got to be the team's quote-unquote identity. And then at the end of this podcast, we're going to talk about the next step for Syracuse basketball. Okay? That's all coming up on tonight's post-game reaction. Before we get to everything, this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, visit FanDuel.com to get started. Okay, everyone. Who here was nervous tonight? Raise your hand if you were nervous for this basketball game tonight. And don't lie to me. If it makes you feel better, I was nervous as well. Syracuse basketball on ESPN2. They're playing UAlbany. I mean, come on. Can they please just win this game with no stress? And they did it. They did. They finally dominated an inferior opponent. They had not done that all season long. Lemoyne, Colgate, Youngstown State, even Cornell, which they won by over 10 points, that was a nail-biter until the end. The score doesn't tell the story of that game against Cornell. Now, I guess the only complaint of tonight's game was the defensive effort at the end was atrocious, but it didn't matter because so was UAlbany's. So nobody was playing defense. So Syracuse and UAlbany were just going back and forth. And the Orange consistently held a double-digit lead. You never felt they were actually going to lose this game. It was one of those weird moments, the first time all season long, I have been able to prepare a podcast in a positive way early in the second half. I already kind of knew what I was going to say. It was kind of weird circumstances heading into it. Adrian Autry had to switch the lineup up a little bit, the starting lineup. Elijah Moore, Chapel Moore, he was in for Lucas Taylor. Thank you. Please keep doing that going forward. But he also started Jair Davis over Donnie Freeman for what was said to be or reported to be by Mike Waters as personal reasons. And ironically, they might have found something from that. Maybe they should continue to have Donnie Freeman coming off the bench because all of a sudden he became a three-point shooter overnight. Whatever. But there are two guys here that are really going to get shout-outs, okay? The first one is Kyle Cuffe. I mean, shout out to Kyle Cuffe in this game. He was the one who helped break the game open. So I would consider him one of the most important players of this game tonight. It was back and forth early. Both teams were kind of trading buckets, and there was a part of me that was just saying, like, oh, here we go again. Like, we're really going to have just a nail-biter against UAlbany. But nope. Kyle Cuffe, he broke the three-point seal. He hit Syracuse's first three-pointer since Tennessee because they didn't hit one all game against Notre Dame. That was under 12 minutes, and he gave Syracuse a 9-point lead in the first half. Overall, I mean, he did basically all of his damage in the first 20 minutes. He had 10 points. He was 3 of 3 from the field, 2 of 2 from the three-point line, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, and he did it in 6 minutes. What more can you ask for from Kyle Cuffe? I mean, where did that come from? Insert every single person in my comment section now saying we need to play Kyle Cuffe more. I agree with you on that. Now, I will say this, though, about Kyle Cuffe. He does need to play more, but I don't think he's the type of guy that should be playing like 20 minutes. I think he's honestly best when he's playing 10 to 15 minutes, which when I look at what he did for the entire game, Kyle Cuffe played 12 minutes. That's about what you want from a guy like Kyle Cuffe. Solid depth piece. He was very good tonight with 10 points, all in the first half. It was double the amount he had the entire season. He had 5 points the entire year coming into tonight. He had 10 in one half. His career high, for what it's worth, is 13 points against Chaminade, but I don't really count that. That's Chaminade. That's Division 2. Remember that game last year? It was in Maui. That doesn't even count. It doesn't count to the point where the net rankings don't even care about that game. So this might have been the best game of Kyle Cuffe's career. Period. End of story. Shout out to Kyle Cuffe, who helped break the game open, hitting a couple three-pointers in the first half, getting to the free throw line, hitting the free throws, had a transition layup in there as well. Well done. The other one is Jaquan Carlos. From the second half of Notre Dame, I was really negative after Notre Dame. I was really negative about that one, and I'll get to it later. I don't really take anything back from it, but one positive things I said was that you can't blame Jaquan Carlos on the Notre Dame game, because in the second half, he looked like the guy we had been waiting for. Like, hello, Jaquan Carlos does it for an entire 40 minutes tonight. He is a steady point guard that when he has the ball, he knows exactly what to do with it. He had 12 points and 12 assists tonight. That's a double-double. And some nights he's not going to give you 12 points, but he can give you 12 assists. He can. And the adjustment for him has been really simple. We should have been doing this a long time ago, but he's going to the basket. I'm going to talk about it in the next segment. Keep going to the basket. But he's going to the basket, and it's forcing the defense to either collapse in on him. So that means that someone's going to be open, and with Jaquan Carlos's passing ability, he will typically find them. Or if they don't collapse in on him, then he's just going to hit a layup. That's exactly what he did tonight. And the example that I picked out was in the second half. He threw a ridiculous pass to Chris Bell, who was standing in the right wing. It was at the under 12-minute mark of the second half. Bell missed the three. He still can't hit a three, but Bell was much better tonight. Notice how I'm actually calling him by his name, Chris Bell. But it was an example of Jaquan Carlos of driving to the paint, forcing the whole defense to close in on him, and then finding the open man. Even in a difficult pass, Chris Bell was wide open from the right wing. Bell just missed it, but that's one of those that could have easily been assist number 13 tonight. He was excellent. And again, if you want to minimize this game as a team standpoint, I'm not going to stop you because I'll get to the next step at the end of the podcast. But don't minimize Jaquan Carlos here because he had been struggling the entire season. It didn't matter the opponent that he was playing. He looked bad from the season opener up until the second half against Notre Dame. And in that time frame, Syracuse has played some really good teams. They've played Tennessee. They've played Texas. They've played Texas Tech. They've also played cupcakes that they should dominate, but had not been dominating until tonight. It didn't matter who they were playing. Jaquan Carlos was not looking good. And the criticism was largely deserved. He wasn't playing well. But I'm not going to minimize this one because finally he looks like the player that we had envisioned. Is he going to be all conference? No, he's not an all conference player. I don't think he has the talent to be all conference, but he's got excellent vision. And if he just keeps going to the basket and basically creating a 2-on-1 scenario where either you're going to collapse in on me or I'm going to hit the open man, that's good. Keep doing that. That could work going forward. That's something that is sustainable going forward, no matter the opponent. I mean, we literally saw him do that against Notre Dame. So overall, they finally did it. They dominate an inferior opponent at home. Syracuse beats UAlbany 102-85. I'm Jackson Holzer. We're breaking down the game here on Locked On Syracuse. And coming up, I've been talking for the last couple of episodes about the team's identity. Well, We know what it's got to be. That's coming up next on the Locked On Syracuse podcast. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Now, let's talk about Syracuse football for a moment. They're playing in the Holiday Bowl against Washington State on December 27th, and FanDuel currently has the Orange as 6.5-point favorites, and for what it's worth, I think most of Syracuse's starters, at least the ones if they don't enter the transfer portal, are going to play, at least from what Fran Brown has been saying. So you can do what you want with those odds at 6.5. I just felt that you should know that. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse, and on tonight's post-game reaction, we are going over Syracuse basketball's dominating win over UAlbany. Unbelievable. They finally dominated an inferior team at home, 102-85, and shout out to this team for letting me prepare an entire podcast well before the game was even over. I already had all my notes and what I was going to talk about because, hey, that's what happens in a stress-free win. Amazing, right? We know what this team now has to be, okay? We're 9 games into the season. Go to the paint. Go to the paint. This team can't shoot a lick. They can't. We're 9 games in. We know this by now. They can't shoot. Now, maybe every once in a while they can get deep or they can get hot from deep. Every once in a while it could happen where they have a night where everything's just dropping from three-point land. I mean, tonight they were 6 of 15, which for what it's worth, that's 40%. But Donnie Freeman had hit 4 threes. Okay? It was because of mostly Donnie Freeman. And Kyle Cuffe was 2 of 2. It's got to be a team that wins inside the paint. And obviously it helps when you're going up against a team like UAlbany, who doesn't have a single player that actually plays on its team that's above 6'8". I mean, points in the paint tonight. 62 points in the paint for Syracuse. I mean, that's just ridiculous. I mean, you're not going to do that against any high major opponent, but that's the strategy. Go to the basket. And we saw right from the get-go in this game do exactly that. Thank you to the coaching staff for realizing that nobody on UAlbany is above 6'8", so not a lot of players really. There were very few moments in this game where you saw Syracuse settle for a bad shot. They were just going to the rim the whole time. Very early, Jair Davis just bullying his way to the basket for the first couple of points. You knew it. It set the tone for the game that they're not going to screw around and try to get hot from deep and take all these three-pointers. No, go to the basket, especially against a team like UAlbany, guys. I mean, come on. You got to go to the basket. This is what this team has to do going forward to be successful. Jaquan Carlos, I talked about his adjustment that he made in the first segment of this podcast. Go to the basket, because one or two things are going to happen when he goes to the basket. He's either going to get a layup, or if the defense collapses, which is really what they should do, he can find the open man. There you go. Go to the basket. Chris Bell, he still can't get it going from deep. He was 0 for 3 from three-point land tonight. You know what Chris Bell can do to make up for that so he can still be on the floor? Go to the basket. He had a nice and one at the end of the first half from Eddie Lampkin. It beat the buzzer. There was less than a second remaining, where he just cuts to the rim on the baseline. And Eddie Lampkin, shout out to him. He's an excellent passer. He finds him. Bell with a tough finish, makes it, and hits the free throw. There you go. And he had another and one towards the end of a game where he broke the press. He drove right to the rim, had a layup, made it, and was fouled. Go to the basket, especially when your three-point shot is not falling. You need to see the ball go in the hoop one way or another. Go to the rim. Donnie Freeman. Well, he was actually just hitting his three-pointers tonight. What did he go? Hit 4 of them? 4 3-pointers from Donnie Freeman. He was 4 of 4. Okay, I have been begging Donnie Freeman to go to the basket more often and stop shooting threes. I guess when you got it going, you got it going, so don't stop. Fine. If he's hitting threes, I mean, it's over for any defense. They can't guard him. He's unguardable, which is why you want him to be a three-point shooter. It's one of those scenarios where I guess I am okay with Donnie Freeman shooting one three-pointer. And if he makes the three-pointer, he gets to shoot another one. But if he misses that first three-point shot, I don't want him to shoot another three for the entire game. It sounds kind of stupid, I know, but that's kind of the way I look at it. Like, I want him to still attack the rim because he's so good around the basket. But he was making his threes tonight. So am I going to kill him for it? No. You got it going, you got it going. And that's what I'm talking about, how the identity has to be going to the basket. But if occasionally you do get hot from deep, then you're hot. And Donnie had it going tonight. So I guess shout out to him. It's like the coaches finally figured it out. That's what it felt like. Oh. Preseason, we wanted this team to shoot the ball well. It's been 9 games. They have not been shooting well. Maybe we should just attack the basket. I'm a big hockey guy, guys. And if you are a loyal listener, a loyal follower of this podcast, you know that I'm a hockey fan. I've said it a good amount of times. If you're new, then now you know. We've gained a lot of new subscribers recently, so now you're learning a little bit about your host, Jackson Holzer. I love the sport of hockey. Why am I bringing this up? Because coaches in hockey will always say to a forward, go to the net. Go to the net, because that's where you score goals. And when I compare it to basketball, it's like, go to the basket, because that's where you score points. Sounds simple enough? Because when you go to the basket, what happens? Well, you're close, so it's easier to shoot. What else can happen? Well, you can easily make the shot. You can get fouled. Mostly good things happen when you attack the basket. So Syracuse, for a team that can't shoot well, your identity is very simple. Go to the basket. And they did that tonight. And that's a large part of why they scored 102 points against UAlbany. 62 points in the paint. Do that more. They scored 102 points. They hit 6 3-pointers. What does that tell you? What does it tell you? They were going to the rim. 18 free throw attempts. And by the way, they were 16 of 18 from the free throw line. Got to keep doing that going forward, obviously. But you have all those attempts. Why? You're going to the basket. How many times do you want me to say it? I've said it probably 1,000 times in this segment, but now you probably understand the point. That's why I will sometimes repeat myself. Good win for Syracuse. I don't want to take it away from them. It was a good win. 102-85 over UAlbany. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse. Coming up, what's the next step for the Orange? Nothing delivers comfort and joy quite like the unrivaled quality and taste of Omaha Steaks. It's guaranteed perfection in every single bite, and right now you can save on unforgettable gifts with 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com, plus store an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. With 5 generations of experience, they consistently deliver the world's best steak experience, and the gifting experts at Omaha Steaks have made it easy to deliver the perfect gift with thoughtfully curated gift packages featuring gourmet favorites. From legendary steaks to mouth-watering desserts and more, save 50% off site-wide for a limited time at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code COLLEGE. Minimum purchase may apply. What's the next step for Syracuse basketball? Feel free to let me know in the comments section below. I'm going to give you my thoughts on this. I'm Jackson Holzer. This is Locked On Syracuse, and we are talking about the Orange's 102-85 victory over UAlbany. It's really simple to me. Can you carry this over against a high major team? Ironically, Syracuse's 2 best games of the year have come against high major competition. Their best 2 games also were both losses. It was in Brooklyn. The Texas game, particularly that second half where they nearly pulled off a big comeback win, and against Texas Tech where they were fighting tooth or nail the entire game, but Texas Tech, they were the better team. You got to give them credit. They won the game. The next step is to keep having efforts like this against high major competition. Their defense, for what it's worth, was not very good at the end of the second half, but kind of take it with a grain of salt. Maybe they just took their foot off the gas a little bit. And when they're playing up against high major teams, they are less likely to take their foot off the gas because it's a high major team, at least from what I have seen this season. It's not like Syracuse has given up 85 points to all these high majors, except for Tennessee. Tonight was a baby step. It was a baby step. They dominated a mid-major opponent like they are supposed to do. The reason why it is a baby step is because, like I said earlier, they hadn't been doing that. They hadn't. Their 4 wins coming into tonight were not that impressive. They were ugly. Tonight was the first quote-unquote pretty win. It's going to take a lot more than dominating UAlbany to change my opinion on this team. So I stand by it. Do I think they're a very good team? I do not. I don't. I know it's a win. Am I happy about it? Yeah, I'm happy about it because at least they took some sort of baby step, but I'm sorry that you're not going to convince me that Syracuse basketball is back because you beat UAlbany by 17 points. Now is where we have to come back to reality. We can be positive and understand that this was a good effort and that they did what they were supposed to do and they should be commended for it. But we also have to acknowledge there's a long way to go. A long way to go. You don't just all of a sudden get crowned a great basketball team because you beat UAlbany by 17 points. No. You got to do a whole lot more than that. Okay? Those are my thoughts on the next step for Syracuse basketball. And hey, what about next game? The next game is on Saturday. They are playing a Big East team. I'm not going to mention what the Big East team is because I don't like their name at all. I don't like that school at all. I've actually been to their campus. It's low-key actually a pretty nice campus. But the school sucks. That's who they're playing on Saturday. And if you don't know the school that I'm talking about, maybe you are a younger listener or a watcher of this podcast, so you're kind of unfamiliar. Starts with a G, ends with an N, and they are in the Big East. I'm trying to count how many letters are in their name so I can give you more of a hint. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10. They got 10 letters total. So you can figure it out now. Carry it over against them. It's their biggest rival. I know it's not the same as what it once was. They're not Big East rivals anymore. But that's still your biggest rival. And I want to see this same effort against that team, especially that team. That's the next step. And if you can do that, then guess what? The Saturday after, on the 21st, you got Maryland. A good Maryland team in Brooklyn. You want to prove me wrong? You want to prove a lot of us wrong about, hey, maybe this is a good team? Dominate that Big East team. And then you know what? Why don't you beat a good team? Why don't you beat a team that's probably going to make the NCAA tournament? One of the better teams in the Big Ten. How about that? So that's the next step for Syracuse basketball. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. As far as what is coming up on the podcast going forward, tomorrow, I don't think I'm going to do a full podcast unless something crazy happens, but I do have 2 mini podcasts that I have planned. The first one, there was some news today and that is that former LSU quarterback, Ricky Collins, in the transfer portal. He visited Syracuse today. So I'll break that down on a mini podcast tomorrow. I'll give you my thoughts on it. I was actually going to do it today, and then Mike McAllister broke the story that the Orange got a 4-star offensive lineman in 2026. So it's all prepared. I just have to post it for tomorrow. Can't give you an exact time, but I'll let you know on social media at LO_Syracuse. Also, there's been some online buzz about Kyle McCord and potentially getting another year of college eligibility. Now, I don't want to get your hopes up about this, but I'm seeing it a lot online, and I do have some inside information on this. I do, so I will give you the inside information that I have, and I will give you my thoughts on the matter in a mini podcast about Kyle McCord and potentially getting another year on a mini podcast tomorrow afternoon. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe to the channel, turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. And shout out to Syracuse basketball for finally dominating an opponent. They beat UAlbany 102-85. I will see you all again tomorrow.